Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of He Lives podcast. I'm Alistair McLean, and this is my sacred space to share the stories of my soul. In each episode, I channel the wisdom of my ancestors who appear to me as spirit animal totems, recounting true stories of love and transformation from my life. These stories weave the past into the present, revealing a larger tapestry which connects us all. Each tale is an act of remembrance, a ritual of embodiment, both a spiritual transmission and a reflection of my ascension journey. So I invite you to listen with an open heart through vibration and let nature's messengers stir the ancient remembrance codes of your DNA within you. So I welcome my ancestors now as I welcome the spirit of the fly. I spy with my little eye something beginning with 3. He lives straight from the heart. Hello, I am the fly. I won't divulge my name because that would be giving away who I am. But I will tell you a story which will intrigue you and keep you glued to the edge of your seat. Because flies are spies, and there are none better than I. The fly is an assortment of information because that is our job. We collect information for people because we're spies. It's our job to relay information back to source. What's happening behind closed doors, you might be asking? What would it be like to be a fly on the wall? Let's find out. Flies are fast and small, which means we're not taken seriously. And on top of that, we've got a poor reputation for eating shit. So you get the perfect spy. Somebody nobody takes notice of, someone who is allowed to just sit and fit in without being noticed. Someone people look down on instead of looking up to them. This is how spies are trained, to specifically blend in, and what better way than looking like someone who puts up with eating crap all day. Lovely, I know, but let me divulge more into the personality of flies, so you can understand why I'm going to tell you this spy thriller of a story. As flies, we speak fast, move fast, and eat fast. Basically, we do everything fast, and that can be a bit much for most people. If you spend the majority of your life moving that fast, it starts to take its toll as quite stressful, like being a full-time spy. Nobody wants to spend the rest of their life looking over their shoulder for a make-believe enemy that might jump out of your fridge in the middle of the night. And yet the mind often creates those fears. That's where we come in. Flies are like thoughts. We fly in, buzz around the mind, leaving our shit behind. Whether that be a turd bomb or a love bomb, that's up to you. We come in, take what we need, and leave behind the shit. How do we do that? Through the open windows to your mind and soul, just like in your bedroom. You leave the window open, and we come in. But when we try to get out, we get stuck on the window, so we buzz around your mind all day until you let us out the window. An example might be seeing a man stood under a midnight sky with a silver moon in the sky. He has a ball in his hand. He has that special power to turn anything into rainbows. So he charges up his right hand with a rainbow fire and throws this ball so hard it flies around the world, leaving a wake of rainbow fire behind it, mixing with the water and the air to cover the land and sky in rainbows. The ball travels around the planet and hits him in the back of the head, turning him into a rainbow man. Am I in your head yet? You see, I created a stunning visual for you, and that visual lets me in either into your heart or your mind. If I choose love, it's the heart. If it's fear, it's the mind. We buzz around infiltrating your mind with what we want you to believe and leave it like a box of distraction to keep you in your mind and out of your heart. But we can only do that because you leave the window open. What opens the window of the mind, you might ask? Oh, to be a fly on the wall, they say, because everyone likes to know what is going on behind closed doors. Well, today I will tell you what is going on behind those closed doors of your mind. I will tell you by taking you on a journey, because it is the journey that shows us the bigger meaning of it all. And by the end of this story, you will be much more enlightened. There I was, full trench coat, gun in hand, back pressed against the wall. I was under deep cover. My mission? To infiltrate the hive mind of the Dark Coalition, to find out what they were planning for humanity. I was the only man for the job and quick to volunteer. I hate those bastards for what they did to us, but that wasn't why I did it. I did it for love. I wanted to succeed in starting a new life with my partner. She was a spy as well. We didn't always see eye to eye, if you get my meaning, but there was a reason for that. A reason that we learned working our missions, and this was the reason I was here. I was infiltrating the Dark Coalition of Separation. To infiltrate the Dark Coalition, I had to interview for the position in security. My cover? Toxic masculine. I had plenty of time to prepare. I'd been learning it my whole life. So I began telling them a joke. I said, "Hey, do you want to hear a joke?" They said, okay, if this is part of the interview. Time flies like an arrow, but fruit flies like a banana. I got a raised smile, and they took out my file to ask me more questions. I felt like I was in the Matrix. They wanted to see if I was who I said I was. So I told them, I hate women. I think they're all whores, after admitting I'd fucked more than women and Genghis Khan. I told them I love football and that my favourite pastimes were buying cryptocurrency, eating McDonald's and punching people in the face. Luckily, they bought it. I flew inside the room I was sent to spy on, and there they were sitting round a table. The fat cats at the table with men in black suits whispering strong suggestions in their ears. I've been in many close spots before, but this was the big one. It was full of all the greedy ones, all the high-risk ones, and this is the first time I'd seen them all in one place. I was taking a huge risk by being in here, but I had special and unique technology which made me untouchable. Plus I had my excellent spycraft which I had honed over the years. I was the toxic man, and now I was using every part of that toxic masculinity to stand there and fit in. I listened and watched as they discussed their big ideas and their next moves to further the separation of humanity. Over the years, I listened in on their meetings, and each time I would leave behind a little secret surprise, my own homemade love fusion bomb, so that when it was time to leave, I would have a distraction to aid in my escape. They said they didn't want the war to end. It was too fruitful for them. Everything was increasing, their profits, their control, and their power, gaining more traction in their efforts. So they increased their efforts further in favor of greed. The goal was to degrade women and empower men with more darkness to feed the war effort and pervert the course of justice. Of course, my partner was working the other side, where women wanted to infiltrate the hearts of men with love. But the Dark Coalition knew that if they attacked the men, there would be nobody to protect them, nobody to fight for them. They had been speaking for years about this, and today it was all there being discussed around this table. They had already had access of infiltration through the minds of each human through the evolutionary blueprint of the reptilian brainstem, but now they were trying different doorways. They had a biological and technological access to the DNA frequency of low-level communication with the mind, technology disguised in vibration through phone towers and invisible frequencies of wireless technologies, to the point where one day they would be in every household, and that today is that day. It was a simple plan. They wanted to pump fear into the collective minds, and they were constantly looking for new methods of infiltration to infest the hive mind of humanity with fear. All they wanted was complete control, and their most successful method for generations was war, but people had become desensitized to it. They had stolen and controlled all of the streams of wealth for generations and used that money to infiltrate, influence, and control the world population. They took over fuel companies and filled their products with chemicals, so when they were combusted, they created a significant output of chemicals harmful to life. They bought media and news outlets only to show negative events. They filled supermarkets with poisoned food to create addictions and ailments that would open a door to pharmaceuticals. They were rubbing their hands with glee when mobile phones arrived because now they could be everywhere, in our homes, our schools, and even our dreams. They programmed the phones and manipulated digital contracts so that people would have to agree to them before they could use the device. Contracts designed for intimidation and infiltration through our own addiction to turning a blind eye. Their main goal was to desensitize humanity from the truth, filling the internet with multiple points of view based and stretched from truth into lies, to confuse people into further ignorance, turning a blind eye to genocide, war, and enslavement on a global scale. They used the internet and media on a mass scale to infiltrate the hive mind of the collective with the illusion of multiple choice, because with choice came doubt, and with doubt came disbelief. Disbelief in truth and love, and then came their big plan of addiction. Too much choice for movies, too much choice for food, drugs, dating, alcohol, porn, and so on. Too many choices made us lose and forget who we were, made us forget how to receive and how to receive love. It made us spoilt, miserable, lazy, and controlling in our addictions, keeping us dense and slow enough so we wouldn't stand a fight. It was their dark spell which was put into all of their methods of infiltration, the spell of turning a blind eye, the spell of ignoring the dance of love, ignorance, birthing the avoid dance, an evil of stagnation which refused to dance with love. They used addiction to play us off against each other. They addicted us to fear and perpetuation of separation. They even created a world virus which taught people to be afraid of each other. The truth no longer mattered to people because they had lost their belief in love and truth, because they were programmed to live in their minds instead of their hearts. Little by little, people were led to push each other away and each other, but not to love each other. As triple agents, my partner and I shared our information. Combining our intelligence, we saw how the war was playing us off against each other, man versus woman. The odd disagreement here and there were enough to send the wrong signals to each other, signals of separation instead of love. And we saw it being sent out as part of the war effort, like leaflets of propaganda dropped into our minds via our mobile phones and Wi-Fi transmissions. Our love was too strong for that, and we saw behind the veiled curtain. We saw their endgame, so we created a plan, one that would throw a spanner in their works permanently. We agreed to set off on a grand mission together as triple agents to end the war for ourselves and everyone, to fully expose what they were doing to us. We continued to work for our own side, knowing we were actually working for each other, and in turn we would free all the people. But sometimes we bit off more than we could chew. We needed help, but what could we do? Who would believe a couple of dastardly spies? Our jobs were straightforward enough. I would infiltrate the dark coalition of conspiracy against the feminine, and she would infiltrate the dark coalition of transparency against the masculine. My job was to see how they were twisting the image of the feminine, and hers to see what they were hiding from the masculine. It was quite exciting working together as spies, but we always planned it as a means to an end. We had spent lifetimes doing this same work, and we wanted to be free from it all and live a beautiful life together. Everyone deserved the fruition of their dreams and love. In the end, we came to a decision. We knew we would die for each other. We would do whatever it took, but this time we wished to live. But how could we live in a system that wanted us enslaved or dead? Then it came to me. If they built those addictions, they must know how to destroy them. Many times I had been in situations like this, but none as important. I had to gather something useful I could use against them. I couldn't let them get away with it. I listened deeply to what they were saying, and I used my spycraft to hack their computers with a wireless device, using their own technology against them, to gather the necessary codes of information, to decode the spell they were using. I was in, but then all hell broke loose. Had they discovered me? No. They knew there was a hack, but they had no idea it was right under their noses. I left behind a big surprise, a virus on my own, a love bomb. I turned out of the corridor as everyone was on high alert, and the dark coalition was still sat unaware of the breach. This was my chance. I'd planned an escape route. I ran towards the security exit, encountering hundreds of security staff. I couldn't be seen, so I ran into the service elevator. I triggered the time detonator. My heart was pumping. The heat was on. The mechanical doors opened. and I ran. My partner meets me at the exit. We jump for it and land in the river. We climb out into the forest and into our escape vehicle, and we're gone. We check if we're followed. Nobody saw us. We're in the clear. We pull over and look at each other with love in our eyes. We did it. We knew this was it, so we headed home, and instead of making war, we made love. Together, we played both sides, and we gathered the necessary information, and we began to put it together. We just had to decode it, and eureka, I found it. They hijacked the mind through the window of the soul, the third eye chakra. Like a cinema screen, they infiltrated our soul through the visual cortex by creating violent visuals and sounds that would reverberate in the mind, causing us to recreate what we saw through the repetitive buzzing of those images and sounds. Every movie, every television show was a transmission from the mind of each creator that had been influenced by the Dark Coalition. And every projection, like a movie projector, created a false dream we would copy. They projected facial expressions of misery, anger, and betrayal, aggressive reactions and responses to the opposite sex, satanic rituals in movies that we would pay witness and homage to, pornographic degradation of the feminine to ruin their image, and war, rape, and violence committed as crimes by the masculine. They manipulated us into witnessing atrocities against each other. And the sick part was it created so much addiction to ignorance that our third eyes had become blind to love and fixated on fear. Through the projection of the third eye, the soul would unconsciously create and copy what was seen, because the veil of love had been covered with a veil of fear that we created. All of it designed to prevent us from creating our own stories of love, our own songs of love, because they knew creation was the greatest expression of love there is. The devices I had left in all the rooms had recorded everything we needed to hear. I listened further to understand how. They had to get to the third eye to envision the lie and manifest it into the world around us. So they used a false delusion on our belief systems and made us believe everything was outside of us. Just like watching a movie on a cinema screen, we would mirror it back outwards, creating our own fears. And instead of creating our own stories of love, we watched their stories, afraid to create our own. The misuse of information was being used against us all. They used media, the internet, and social bot platforms to dehumanize the network and desensitize us with death and violence through media platforms over centuries. Even children were susceptible now, and now everyone had a phone in their pockets, even children. Wherever they went, they were essentially holding a permission slip of infiltration via dark frequencies of 5G and Wi-Fi. People began hurting each other and feeding the plan of separation, and the addiction to scrolling the internet and negative forms of media began. The world became numb. But I still had one question. Why the third eye? Why not the sacral? Then it struck me. The third eye was the portal to the soul, the portal to the gifts of who we are, our abilities, our senses, our ability to see past the lies, our ability to listen to the truth, and our ability to feel the joy and love of life, the ability to speak words of love and sing songs of revelation, and our ability to connect to a higher power. They had hijacked our sovereignty, our self-belief, and the authority that came with it. They had taken all of our gifts and turned them against us. But there was one gift they had used against us that was bigger and more damaging than all the rest put together. They created ignorance by influencing our ability of response. This was it. This was the antidote. We would have to take responsibility for our own lives to beat them, taking back the responsibility they stole from us and create the dreams of love they were trying so hard to prevent. We had what we needed now. We just needed to put it into action. We tried everything we could to find a way into their realm, but in the end, we realized the only way was within ourselves. So we sat together day after day, and we did all the things they told us not to do. First, we spoke the spell to reverse the infiltration they cast upon our minds. I cast out any and all fruitless ideas of fear from my mind. I closed the doors and windows of my mind and soul to infiltration of fear and opened my mind and heart to love. It is done. We quit our jobs and began our journey together. No longer triple agents, we were working for ourselves and each other now. We turned everything back on them. So when they asked us to go into lockdown, we unlocked ourselves by going deep within. They told us to keep our distance from each other. So we spoke to each other every day as man and woman, opposite each other. We exposed all the lies we had not taken responsibility for, and the more we exposed, the more we fell in love, coming closer and closer together, again and again, as long as it took to remember who we were and who we were to each other. They told us not to take plant medicine, so we journeyed together on astrological portals to empower us as we cleansed our bodies to remember who we were. They told us to lie to each other, so we spoke the truth. They told us to judge each other, so we forgave. They influenced us to sell our souls for money, so we quit our jobs. They told us to hold on to it all, so we sacrificed it all. They told us not to believe, so we asked God and our ancestors for help, and they responded. We went through hell together, and we lost it all. But we had each other, and that was worth more than any house, any car, or amount of gold in the entire world. Love was with us in every moment, and we kept choosing for love as many times as it took, to always choose for love, no matter how difficult it got. And the more we did, the more we remembered who we were. It wasn't long before we awakened to the lies, so we left our old lives behind and jumped headfirst into the unknown, holding each other by the hands. Instead of separating, we became inseparable. We became an unstoppable force of love, all because we took responsibility by choosing love over fear. Instead of turning a blind eye, we looked each other in the eye. We confessed our sins of betrayal against each other, and we forgave each other for our trespasses, as we forgave those who trespassed against us. We reclaimed our belief, and we followed love, and in doing so we unlocked the prophecy of love, and began to walk it as prophecy walkers. Once we had gone deep inside to prove the antidote worked on ourselves, it was time to accept our next mission, to take the antidote into the public domain and infiltrate the hearts and minds of the world with peace and love, to bring the unchained melody of love back to the people, to help people take responsibility for making a great change. We knew we could only do it together, and so we began spreading the word of love, but the world continued to ignore us. People had become addicted, so we needed something magical, something that would turn the heads of everyone in our direction, so they would see what we had done. We needed help, so we reached out to others. We put ourselves in vulnerable positions, and there were those brave few who said yes, coming from deep cover and exposing themselves. Together we were better, and together we would create a movement, a revolution of love that would take the world by storm, and the world would take notice. Say hello to prophecy walkers. This was the movement, where people could walk the prophecy with us. The goal was simple: get everyone to expose their difficulties they were going through while taking responsibility for trying to live a life of love, and we would show them the way. This was the prophecy of love. And now the discussion. Did you play the game of I Spy, something beginning with 3? The third eye, of course. This is probably the most accurate story I've told about my life. It is absolutely on point. I spent years eating shit in finance, eating the shit of my boss, who was treating me like shit every day. And when I gave it up, this is what my partner and I actually did in 2020. It was then that I found love and I had my awakening to what they were doing to us. It's taken us years to integrate and bring into life all of this, and we are out of money now because of what they've done to us. So please send your donations. It's really helpful. This is our full-time job, and we've tried our best to get this information out there. We can only do it through the purity of receiving donations for our work. So we've launched the Say Hello to Prophecy Walkers campaign on our Patreon, on our Prophecy Walkers YouTube channels, our joint channel, where together with your help, we will create a movement of love. We're also launching Love Letters, a campaign where someone nominates someone who is going through a difficult time, and we write them a letter with a limited edition piece of art drawn by none other than the great artist Hazel Evans. Now, onto The Fly. The Fly is an absolute class act at infiltration, a bit like Mission Impossible style spying. My partner and I actually had a really incredible embodiment of the fly when we actually remote viewed ourselves as flies, spying on ourselves, falling in love. So remote viewing is when you can go into the spirit of an animal and look through its eyes. And when we did that, Hazel was living in a complete shithole in Holland in this caravan, which was very apt to this podcast. We can laugh about it now, but she had lost everything at that time. It was midsummer, and I'd come to meet her from London in the middle of nowhere just to be with her. It was in the middle of a heat wave, and didn't have any air conditioning, just a fan blowing hot air around, and there were fly paper strips hanging everywhere, and each strip had about 100 dead flies on it. It was disgusting. This is the hell she had to go through from what had happened to her. She was a target for the Dark Coalition. To be able to remote view ourselves through the eye of the fly was absolutely incredible, and we got to relive the best parts of our journey in that moment, seeing ourselves sat opposite each other. Oh, it was just beautiful. So, what opens the window of the soul, you might ask? Well, here are a few examples. Watching violent movies is, too many times is allowing that in. It's something it's not good for your mind, or scrolling before bedtime. Both things are not good for you, but like a fly, you are attracted to shit after years of infiltration of your mind through electrical frequencies of fear via media and Wi-Fi, not to mention food. We've been told by Spirit directly that Wi-Fi is extremely bad. They infiltrate. So I have it on a timer. It turns off every night and turns back on in the morning so that we can sleep without the infiltration in our dreams, and turn our phones off as well. These fear-induced signals create spies in the minds of people, allowing yourself to be spied upon and worse, influenced. When you leave the windows of your mind open through subliminal and suggestive signals and frequencies, you're creating that constant buzzing in your body, which creates that sense of fear, not being able to stand still for a moment and actually feel your heart, not being able to stay still from fear of hearing your own thoughts or being caught. That fear of being caught, being a spy. This is what they do to us. They use consciousness against us, love consciousness against us. They turn it upside down, inside out, and back to front. It's easy to fall prey to these kinds of addictions, and the journey is long, but it's enjoying the journey that matters. And when I look back on my journey with Hazel, we look at everything that went wrong through the eyes of love, and we give gratitude for all of it. There is love in every moment if we are willing to feel it. Just open your inner eye and spy on your own actions. Turn the eye of your love towards yourself. Look within. It's all there. I spy with my little eye something beginning with L.